Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take all of that, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. This is actually episode number 1001. Episode 1000 dropped this morning with Sean McLeod. He is the president over at Axle Logistics, you guys. So check that one out. And again, I'm going to be putting in an announcement out tomorrow about how things are going to be looking here moving forward over on the Freight Coach podcast. But we're going to talk about some compliance. And, you know, honestly, this is just an old friend of mine. He was like legitimately my first compliance manager back in the day. And he's somebody whose opinion and insight I very much value out there in the industry. So I got my man, Mike Sajdak, back on the show to break things down with that amazing Michigan/Metallica looking t-shirt he's got going on.
Morning, Coach. What's going on?
Oh, Mike, I'm ready to rock. And I'm ready for you to tell people about your t-shirt here, man, because anybody can get this stuff.
Yeah, if you go to I actually have the link in my LinkedIn profile. I teamed up with a J2 Sport, a vendor out of Michigan there, and started with this design and kind of filtered in. We got another 85 schools up for sale, a few more on the way through there. So yeah, get them. It's the time of year. We're leading to college football season. Everyone needs some new gear. So why not get something that a little more edge, hits a little harder than what you got out there.
No, that's exactly it, man. And college football is my favorite time of the year, man. I used to like legitimately shut down for like 4 days. I'd take off that Thursday and Friday from work, and I would just binge watch college football for that opening weekend. That's my jam, man. I love watching, football altogether, but like college, man, there's just a different element to college football that I could watch. It doesn't matter what two teams are playing. I could watch any one of those games.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, growing up in Ann Arbor, it was obviously that's all I knew was Michigan, but being down here in Nashville, I mean, it's a little different feel with the SEC country, but it's different atmosphere, but I do love it.
Dude, I'm going to have to get Ken Adamo from DAT. He's a massive Ohio State fan. I'd love to have you guys just come on and debate about that.
You might want to get a little more time for that one. But yeah, if you want to light that powder keg, we'll go for it. I'm
always down to light that powder keg, Mike. I think it's hilarious. But so, dude, what's new, man? How's everything been going on your side of the fence with everything going on in the market and kind of the industry?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, different, aspect where in my role here at Amazon through there, more in the global logistics side, but it's, so more on ocean and drayage, various things through there, but, such a large company through there. So you do see those effects. I think with the supply chain stemming from, back from COVID and where we're at now, I mean, you're still kind of those bullwhip effects through there with, the ocean capacity that then leads into the drayage, leads into your into the domestic freight through there. So the rates, we do feel them too. It doesn't matter where you're at, you're gonna see those effects, and it's gonna be passed down through the carrier. So I mean, there's been some negotiations I've gone through here that have been just brutal, with a lot of those things. So it's, I guess I missed what you had 20, 30, 40 years of boring in ocean, and then it just they throw me into it, and it's far from it through there. So and then you're big here, obviously is keeping your finger on the pulse of the market, the consistent trends, where you lock things in, where's it at? You just gotta, just like any good procurement rep, I mean, any company, you just got to be in tune with that.
Yeah, dude, drayage is interesting to me because like we're actually starting to move like a lot of containers for a customer of ours, and they had built out a new facility, and they're like, hey, we got to bring everything in And they're like, we want you to be a part of it. And it, you know, like admitted, I'd moved drayage before, but not at volume.
Yeah.
But you know, I have come to realize that it's just like with everything, man. There's a system, and that's all you need to do. Is once you crack the code on the system on how things need to operate. I'm not going to say it's smooth by any stretch of the imagination, but as long as you have your system down on that, it's so much more manageable. Because the thing that I do love about drayage work is it's like it's all public data on like where the containers are whenever they are. There's some great tracking, global tracking websites that we utilize. Just, you know, we check the master bill of lading. We see where it's at. We see if it's been assigned a slip yet in, you know, the port, what the offloading status is. And then, you know, again, you have your 4 free days essentially to get the container out after it's been unloaded. And then you have 4 days after it's been picked up essentially to bring it back to the port. And I think it's like, you know, just kind of getting that little routine down and finding out how each port operates and making sure that you're within the free day zone. And, you know, dude, it's been, I found some phenomenal carriers
Yeah.
so far in this, man. And these guys, and that's all they do. And I think that that's what I love the most about it is these drayage carriers, that's all they do, right? Like they don't dabble in anything else. So like they have their processes down as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you make, you know, there's a few more moving pieces, as you probably know as well, comparison to just standard truckload overall. But it, you know, there, as you mentioned with the moves, I mean, you got to pay the fees up front, everything. So it's harder to do that ad hoc or load board freight in that world. I think you're looking more of your dedicated providers that have X amount in certain given ports, you know. But as once you said, once you get those operations moving, it's pretty smooth, you know, with the, you know, you figure those things out, you know, with your chassis pools and your empties and the free time through there. So
Yeah.
it can get out of hand, but yeah, if you're in anyone that's organized, the shipper base and your carriers too, yeah, you can do well.
Dude, I mean, my business partner, he's a former mechanical engineer. So the dude just loves to write up processes
Oh
and
yeah.
create spreadsheets and stuff. So it's like that's all we do, man, is we after our first couple of rounds with it, dude, we just created a spreadsheet where we have everything listed, container number, master bill of lading, vessel, all of that stuff. And we just have a little checklist that we knock off every single time. We know where all containers are that we're moving out there. And I know somebody's going to be like, oh, there's technology for that. I like spreadsheets and Google Docs in this situation. And it's very easy to follow along. We're able to keep our customer updated because ultimately that's what's most important in this situation is keep your carriers informed and your customers informed. And, you know, you'll be all right. I have, you know, knock on wood, I have yet to find a problem that can't be resolved with communication in this industry.
That's it. You said it right there, and I think we've gotten the age of the digital brokerage, and we've seen a lot of that come up over the last 5 to 10 years, and a lot of things that filter out. But there's something about that, the communication. You just can't get away from it. The old, you know, it's between, you know, yourself, your carrier, your customer. It goes a long way. I think
Yeah.
especially on the drayage, if, as you mentioned too, there's a lot of great technology and tracking, you know, that tracks that the on the water reports where the container's at from the ship, gets to the port, gets to the DCs. You can get a lot of visibility on that, but it's not 100% of the business.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I just had a situation that happened last week. You know, same thing. It was, you know, late shipment. You know, obviously it turned into a pretty big deal. But after it was all said and done, my customer replied with a simple, "Hey, Chris, thank you and your team for just keeping us informed and letting us know what was going on." You know,
That's
ultimately that's all I can. You know, we control a lot more than
yeah,
we think, Mike. But ultimately, the most important component is always going to be communication, and it's more important to do it when things aren't going right than it is when things are going right. You
yeah.
know, it might sound catch 22 or whatever. I don't know. I went to public school. I didn't go to Michigan, but you know, I went to a state school. But no, I think that ultimately when things are not going, it's always important to communicate, but especially when things are not going right. Because I just look at it like this. I never want to take my customer's ability to do their job away from them. Because
Yeah.
if there is an issue and they need to air freight something or overnight something to get a critical component out, that allows them to do that. I'll deal with the after effects later, but it's like in the moment, you just need to be decisive.
Yeah, yeah, it depends, as you mentioned through there. I mean, I grew up in the expedited industry as well, and you know,
Yeah.
some customers, it's, you know, just in time or automotive. I mean, it's, hey, every minute they're down is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Other customers aren't so sensitive, but if you're able to communicate it up front, it's so easy to take the credit or patch stuff on the back. But when in transportation, I've been in some ugly situations. I mean, you got to
Yeah.
again, you can't control everything, or breakdowns or traffic or just various things like that. You got to be upfront, honest with them, with your customers, so it's going to happen regardless of whoever they use.
Because like you guys aren't immune to issues, like I think some people will see a company of your size and be like, oh, they must have it all figured out. You guys are probably scrutinize things 10 times more than most people. So like,
Yeah.
how are you guys kind of dealing with the current climate that's going on out there? Because I mean, I know you've been in this industry for a while, and like I had mentioned, Mike was my first like actual compliance manager that I ever had back in the industry. So it's like things have, I mean, they're all kind of the same in my opinion. Like, but it's like it's just evolved in how things are being done now.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're looking to get more on the compliance end of things, or it is,
Yeah, just I mean, in general here, because I mean, you guys
yeah.
move a very high volume
Oh,
of
absolutely.
of freight, customer freight, and your own freight and
Yep.
everything else.
Yeah, that's you have a unique blend there, and I think it's very difficult to forecast that accurately, because markets change. And you mentioned through there, you got the seller business that filters in, and that can fluctuate greatly. You got other competitors out there that look to compete with Amazon for a lot of those things through there. But yeah, the sheer volume, it's mind-boggling when you see how much you got to manage coming in on oceans and then injecting into there. I mean, to keep the speeds we have and to do those various things. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people that are thankfully a lot smarter than I am, that figure those things out, to get that done. But yeah, there's always going to be challenges in the way, and it's figuring out how do we get past those, and how do we keep, not just keep what you have, but improve. And that's, as you get bigger and the more volume, it takes a lot more work and planning and looking
Mhm.
ahead and predicting what could happen to avoid, as just the labor union strikes, various things. You got to stay ahead of those, the Red Sea, the everything that affects our business greatly. Some people it doesn't, but others, like Amazon, it does.
So how are you guys? And again, you don't have to divulge anything that you don't feel comfortable talking about. But like, how are you guys attacking the current freight climate that is going on out there, especially with a rise in theft and everything? And I mean, you can see that even down on the package level, all the way up to the container level or the truckload level that's going on out there. There's a very alarming rise in theft that's going on.
Yeah, in the global side, I don't see a lot of that. I guess when
Mhm.
you're doing ocean drayage through there, but we're in a lot of different aspects through there. So once you get to the final mile, for example, that comes to your door, or various things, I mean, it gets a little more intricate. I think they do have a lot of protocols and procedures in place to avoid that. I mean, as you know, I mean, the theft rings and the individuals looking at that are probably some of the smartest people out there, period. I mean,
Yeah.
the intricacies and the efforts they put in. I mean, they know who has the high value freight, they know where it comes from, they know where it's going, and they can put plans to target that. So I think you probably see it more on Amazon at the door level, people just stealing them off porches or anything. But with it, when it's within our network, you don't see a lot of that, because it's a big focus. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the safety and the uh, risk teams put a lot of effort into keeping things safe and sticking with those protocols, because yeah, if you don't, it can get ugly very quickly.
So how did you used to attack the compliance side of things, right? Because you brought up freight theft rings,
Yeah.
and that's one of those ones that I think are. I mean, I'm of the mindset that the majority of these are an inside job, in the sense of like they're paying off a dock worker who 5 grand cash. Let us know what truck's going out and everything else, because like I just don't like, I don't believe in coincidences, Mike, I guess at the end, not in this industry, because it's like, I'll always go back to this one. It was a couple of years ago when there was a train going through Los Angeles and they just happened to pop the seal of the one with Vizio TVs. Like it was clearly a double stacked train going through downtown LA. They just happened to know which container contained the
Yeah.
TVs.
Yeah, I thinking back to a lot, I think, cutting my teeth on that in the old XPO days through there. I mean, we moved a lot of freight, so there were a lot of instances that I, was able to learn through there. And you mentioned inside job. A lot of it was, unfortunately, I remember, not just freight thefts, but com checks, the fraudulent of com
Oh, yeah.
checks. I recall there was someone on the inside working with someone at a Love's truck stop, and cutting them and caching them. I mean, and I believe it, like a case like yours, I mean, someone on the inside was able to notify and mark, and for them to know exactly which cab had the high value product. I mean, you have to have somebody on the inside. Unfortunately, that's, whether they get that information from someone on the inside or fraudulently, as you know, they can pretend to be someone from the company. They can copy a phone number and, get so much information out of individuals to determine that. So, yeah, it's, I hate to say it, I miss going through those. I mean, you hate dealing with
Yeah.
things like that, but I think the investigative aspect of it, no matter what it is, I do tend to believe there is a lot of inside work on when you do deal with those fraudulent situations.
So what can a company do? Because like I personally think like the easiest method for anybody to apply day one is essentially you need to actually care about the freight you're moving. And I say like you cannot like you need to press your providers on the front end. And I tell drivers all the time, you need to press your brokers as well, because like I've never received a bill of lading that doesn't have pallet counts, piece counts, pickup information, delivery information, but yet lo and behold, there's information out there's pictures of rate confirmations out there that don't have anything, and people are assuming that they're actual loads at that point and everything else. So I always say it's really tough to negotiate with somebody who knows what they're talking about. And they're almost not all the time, but they're almost deterred by that because they're like, shit, this person's too in depth. It's probably not going to be easy to get away with this one. They're looking for that low-hanging fruit.
Oh,
I don't
absolutely.
I don't think that that's changed.
I don't think so either. I think I remember working with the FBI at XPO when we were dealing with some of that, and I remember they had audio, or they were dealing with someone out of a ring out of Vegas through there, and I remember they even said, "Hey, you make it. Everyone makes it so easy. I'm not going to stop doing it." I mean, straight up telling through there. So I think you got to go above and beyond. I think your checks and balances. So going back to, I think we talked carrier compliance and bringing, having that set and robust
Mhm.
process in place. Every company is going to be different. I think you look at what's the authority date line. I mean, the less, I think it opens you up. Hey, if someone brand new to the industry, I mean, you're trying to cover freight. Hey, let's just let them rip. Now, not to say every brand new carrier is fraudulent, but for example, if you're looking at a roofing company and I'm looking online and there's, one has 500 Google reviews, been in business for 10 years, somebody else is 3 months in with no reviews. I mean, similar, it's just like a carrier that gives you the data to look at the inspections, and there's going to be a paper trail. If someone's fraudulent, they're going to probably be doing it right out of the gate. So I
Yeah.
think you got to set those parameters, whether it's, I'm always geared towards the 1 year, but you can go 3, 6 months, but then it's, making sure when they set them up, they are who they say they are. I mean, in that side, you can set up 80 to 100 carriers a day. You being a sales rep are trying to churn out business, cover it for your customer. I mean, it's a lot of pressures, but you cannot take shortcuts. If you're
Yeah.
going to have your processes in place and have the set, this is what we feel are the good qualifications that we can make sure that this carrier is legit. And it's one thing, poor service or they're late, one thing, but if you're looking for those, weeding out the trouble of freight theft and identity theft, that's a lot to do. So you got to, utilizing Secretary of State, the FMCSA, there's a lot of great tools out there. Cassandra's company, other platforms I see that have come up since I've been on the compliance game that give you those tools to look at those things. And
Mhm.
I think it does sometimes you might even reject a legitimate carrier through there. I mean, if you're going to stick with your process and, through there, but I think more times than not, the carriers that fit that profile of the potential theft and just the numbers aren't jiving, those are the ones you got to avoid. I think avoid getting them into your system first and foremost is gonna help you long term, especially the bigger a broker you are, the bigger target you have.
Yeah. Is there something that the carriers could do with that? Because, again, I like obviously starting a company, I know there is a ton of scrutiny when you start a
Yep.
business because there is a lot of risk
Oh yeah.
of people working with you, right? Because I think the biggest thing is it's the financial side of things. Because like I had to personally guarantee every business credit card that I opened right away. The first loan that I took out in my business's name, I had to personally guarantee that because it's not that it's not that you're a bad operator, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
that you have, but these are just the standards that are out there on the financial side of the industry. And I always think I'm like, all right, well, what can these carriers do outside of going and getting direct freight from a shipper, because I
Yeah.
think that's the only real workaround out there is just going in and finding that direct dedicated business. But like, what could a carrier do who's in that, whether it's a year mark or a 6 month mark? What could they
Yeah.
do to like show like, hey, you guys, like we're legit, we're an actual operation?
Yeah, one thing I used to do and kind of above and beyond was, because you're looking at these owner operators just start, but chances are they drove for Schneider or somebody else for
Yeah.
20 years through there. I've actually got background where almost like a reference on a resume, where I've got a reference from their old dispatcher, fleet manager at one of those companies, and talked to them, just legitimacy, saw, just kind of got the backgrounds on that, and was able to verify, hey, they're legit, their insurance legit, it adds up, VIN numbers are there, and making an exception in that fashion through there. But I think the others, it's just a matter of getting, as you mentioned, getting out there, with the direct shippers, and getting that data out there, the visibility, your inspections, your passing inspections, your basic scores. I mean, the more and more you run, again, I think it weeds it out in the end. After more and more the good carriers or good owner operators, it's going to show, obviously
Yeah.
through there. But I don't think there's one right way to do that. But that's one thing approach I took, because it's like, I didn't, not say I didn't want, you don't want to punish those guys, and you could miss out on a great owner operator or small 5 truck
Mhm.
outfit that could be tremendous for your customer through there. So I tried to go a little above and beyond to get some proof of background of their, driving previously, and kind of getting a feel from their former employers.
So I got a question for you. Do you
Yeah,
think a lot of this additional scrutiny on carriers is going to be a fad, in the sense of people can get away with it now because it's a broker's market, and then when it flips and capacity tightens up and rates rise, that all of these stipulations are going to start to go away?
I see a lot of that. Yeah, I think it varies by company, and I guess
Hmm.
it starts at up top, as I say. I mean, it's, what your philosophy is and how you want to look at and how you want to approach that. But it will, yeah, I think overall, if you take the averages, it will flip based upon the needs of the market. If things are tight and you're struggling for things, I think you get a lot of push from management and various things to make exceptions, push them through, and that's where you make the mistakes. I think not adhering and keeping those guidelines through thick and thin, that's where you get in trouble. That's where things disappear, and that's, you kind of look back and, unfortunately, you learn your lesson through there, too late.
Yeah, I think a lot of these stipulations that some of these brokers have out there right now are all going to go to the wayside when the market flips. And I think, but like my prediction, Mike, is that unfortunately this is what's going to cause a mass exodus of freight brokers, because if they think for 1 second every carrier out there does not have a list of I'm never going to work with these guys ever again, they have another thing coming in, because it's like
Yeah,
I see this stuff out there on social media all the time, and some of these rate reductions are just absolutely appalling. Like
yep,
it's like, I don't think you guys understand what you're doing. It's definitely the short term. People are just taking advantage of the situation that's out there. But when things flip, man, and when these drivers rightfully get back to being able to just run a business, right? Because
yeah,
it's like, man, you've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this a long time. I can probably count on, it's probably 1% of the people that I've interacted with in this industry where I'm like, these guys are just blatant pieces of shit. The overwhelming majority of them are just like any one of us, man. They're just trying to work to
oh
provide
yeah,
for their family. They might not know certain things, but like, there are people out there. I personally feel there's businesses that are out there, brokerages and some others that are actively, their mission is to put carriers out of business. I think it's very apparent, whether it's their intention or not, but that's what's driving a lot of that out of there. And I think for a lot of the drivers that are making it right now, when things flip, they are going to bring a death blow to the freight brokers that are out there.
yeah.
It's just inevitable, in my opinion.
No, I agree, and I think it is a battle back and forth. But you got to take that precedence and try to understand. You look at the things the carriers look for, key to work with a broker or customer overall. I mean, pay fair rates, pay on time, communication. I mean, just kind of those basics. And I get it. You're trying to make the most margin possible, various things. But I think thinking long term, treating them fairly, and keeping that relationship overall, because it is, I mean, you look at a lot of the sites that offer the reviews back and forth, it's just throwing mud. I mean,
Yeah.
there's those that used to be are there for legitimate reasons, like, hey, business concern, not just, oh, they don't communicate, they suck, they're late all the time. It's like, those get a little ridiculous after a while through there, and the way they handle it. But yeah, it's not helping anybody, as you said. I mean, brokers and carriers alike, I mean, they're not doing either side any favors, handling in that fashion.
Yeah, because I think ultimately the customers are going to suffer from
Yeah.
this, and again, there's always I'm an opportunist, Mike. I know that all the sales outreach that I'm doing in my brokerage will inevitably pay off
Yeah.
because I try my best, to not operate or at least take a vindictive standpoint out there. I come from the mindset, Mike, that it's just cheaper in the long run to just pay them and move on.
Yeah.
Like the back and forth about detention and layovers and everything else, like just pay them and move on. Like if you have a customer that doesn't pay layovers, which I think are pretty few and far between out there, it's not as rampant as some of these brokers try and make it sound. You just pay them and move on because like ultimately, and I remember I went through this once when I was at XPO. I went through this where I tried withholding I think it was detention from a carrier, and they called my customer, and my customer told me, they're like, hey, FYI, this carrier called, and they knew I lied to them, and they said, if you ever have this happen ever again, I'm pulling all this business from you.
Yeah.
Never again will you do this. And I'm like, and then it hit me again. You got to live and you learn. Of course, I was 27 or 28 at the time. I thought I had the world figured out. And I just told myself from that point on, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm done trying to make money off of this shit. I'm just going to pay these guys and move on.
Yeah.
And just be done with it because like I can't afford to lose a customer because I wanted to make an extra $50.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I can't tell you how many times, especially in the compliance aspect, how many times reps would come to me and, hey, this carries this and, various things, and we want to withhold it. But, not only some of those situations wrong, but man, it's got to be spelled out to a T within your contracts and your rate confirmations and various things and what you can and can't do through there. But yeah, it gets back to your customer. They're choosing you as their broker for a reason for that carrier to come to there. It's definitely an eye-opening experience. I think I've had a couple situations like that as well. And it does, you learn quick, hey, there's some battles are not worth it, over $5-10 or even through there. I mean, yeah, there's some blatant situations where carrier is trying to take advantage of you or really, sticking a T on the rate side. But, what's right is right. You really got to kind of meet in the middle on those situations.
Yeah, I just look at it because, like, from a customer acquisition strategy, and again, this is just data from my company right now. This is the longest sales cycle I've ever seen to onboard new customers. Then on top of that, get the first shipment from them. And it's like if you break down all of those hours and days and weeks you spend, because ultimately that's what it leads up to, of productivity to get that one customer. Is it really worth $50? Like what is it? What's your customer acquisition cost?
Yeah.
You should look at that. And if you can't define that, man, you're in for a rough time coming up here because I just don't think it's worth it. I think that, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars to onboard one customer, and then you're just going to let that go out the window because you want to make an extra $50 because it gets you a little bit more on your bonus check.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely agree. Yeah, the time and effort you put into that. I mean, those are the hard lessons you learn in brokerage and in this industry overall. Where there's certain times. I mean, certain customers are paying, as we know. There's certain that are easier to deal with than others, and through there. But yeah, and the customers you probably go after now versus what you did 20 years ago or 15, it's probably, you kind of know the industries and various things, what to look for and what's worth it, worth your time through there. But yeah, I agree with you there. I think I handle it the same way I've always been on the procurement side and the carrier side. So I look at carriers as my customers. I do in my current role now. I mean, how can I make their experience ideal for me and for them, that can't just assume, hey, I have a ton of freight, they're just going to take, what I give them kind of deal. I mean, sure, you could take that approach, but I mean, it's just not how I operate.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Mike, my ultimate goal is to be a carrier or a broker and carrier, like a broker of choice to my carriers and my customers.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That's ultimately what I want. I know I'm not going to be able to appease everybody, but I think long term, I want when carriers see our name pop up, I want them to be like, fuck yeah, these guys are better than everybody else. Same thing with our customers. Every time they see our name pop up, they're like, yes, we want to work with you guys. We've heard about you guys. we would love to talk and stuff like that. That's my ultimate goal with a lot of
Yeah,
that.
I think in the carrier base that you choose and vet and bring on is a direct reflection of you and how you do your business, and you got to do that too, and make sure the carriers know and their expectations. I mean, what's your customer? Some of it's more little higher, not just high value, but just higher
Yeah.
sensitivity, and I can trust that carrier because they bring it, they understand my business, they value it, and vice versa. I value what they do, so I'm going to pay them fairly.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. Well, hey, Mike, I try and keep these at 30 minutes because I like to get people in and out as fast as possible because they all are professionals and they got jobs to get back to. But one more time, how does anybody reach out to you to find out more, to get your shirts and everything?
Oh yeah, my LinkedIn profile is probably the easiest way.
Yeah.
If I think you have a link in through there. I do have a link to the J2 site that has all my college gear through there, and then I am actually coming out with, as I mentioned, more city state gear that it'll be all 50 states, major cities, various things. But if anyone has any other design ideas, or you reach out to me, happy to put something together.
Perfect. Mike, I appreciate you as always, man. Can't wait to have you back on here soon. But you guys, we got a rare solo show tomorrow because it's been a while. And I'm going to be breaking down some industry headlines, but then I got some guests coming on later this week. I have a shipper coming on Friday for the Q&A show. All right, you guys. So if you guys have any sales or operations related questions for the transportation industry, DM them over to me. My shipper friend who's coming on will answer them live on the show. And as always, if you guys got value, subscribe to the show. You guys share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.